Welcome as I, Miss Shanks, talk you through the introduction of Crooks the Stable-Buck to the story of Mice and Men. When analysing characters, it's important we start with how they are introduced. In this case, Steinbeck has chosen to introduce Crooks through Candy's dialogue, so we need to consider why, when Candy is discussing the bunkhouse as a whole, he singles out Crooks as someone to talk about. There is always a reason an author chooses to introduce characters in specific ways. For Crooks, I believe that by having Candy introduce him, not only does it highlight that he is an outsider just as Candy is and just as George and Lenny are, but it also highlights that he lacks a voice in this story. If we consider the social and historical context of the text, then we will understand why his race is the first thing we know about him. As a black man in America, Crooks would have had very limited rights and would be treated poorly. He also would have had to live a very separate life to those around him due to segregation laws. These laws would have made Crooks an outsider by default. However, Candy highlights he's a nice fella too, suggesting that being an outsider does not necessarily make you a bad person. Despite the wider views of society at the time, Steinbeck crafts Crooks in a way that suggests his race is less important than his character. On the other hand, we could argue that as Crooks's race is mentioned before his personality is, Steinbeck places importance on race in order to use the character of Crooks to explore the segregation and racial abuse the black community faced at the time this text was written. Another noticeable feature mentioned is the injury that gave Crooks his name. Disability was at this time something to be feared, as it often meant you would be unable to work and therefore unable to survive. It is key to note that both Crooks and Candy have this in common, and this is something we will explore at a later date.